Spring ball is happening at the University of Utah, and we got an opportunity to view the second set of practices. Reports are coming out, and we're breaking down all the latest on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media, where you can follow our show at Locked On Utes. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined on today's show by ESPN 700's James Peterson. And James, we got more reports coming out from spring ball. And it's great to have football back. And it's been fun to see just more practices from this Utah football team, because this is our first look at the 2024 version of them. So we get our first hints of kind of what's to come and what to expect. And I think of all the reports that I've seen so far that have come out from the second Tuesday media viewing session that Utah gets to attend and watch the media does, I thought it was very interesting that Fan Nation All Utes tweeted out that Mycah Pittman looked really good today, because we've talked a lot about Dorian Singer, even a Tayshawn Lyons, right? Like the potential that he's got. Money Parks coming back, Minier McLean, and all the things the moments he had last season. Mycah Pittman's the guy who's got that chemistry with Cam Rising going way back to some of their experience playing together in the past. So I definitely think that there's an opportunity. Pittman could still have a role with this team. There's a reason there was so much excitement for Utah adding him, even going back to last offseason.
Definitely. I actually had more expectations for him. I have more expectations for him this year than Money Parks and most of the guys that were in the program last year, just because he's a talent. We would have seen more from him last year if not for injuries. I'm fairly confident in that, even without Cam Rising last year. It doesn't surprise me that he's doing really well in spring ball right now.
Yeah, I like I said, I think it was more so. It doesn't surprise me. It was just, oh, that's right. Like, I genuinely did. I just think sometimes he gets overlooked because of all the guys they have here. But we know he had some nice explosive return moments at Florida State. Always had that potential during his time with the Ducks, too, back when he was in Oregon. So I think it's going to be fun to see how he factors into the wide receiver pecking order. One thing that's not surprising, James, is that we continue to hear rave reviews about Dorian Singer. Even a guy like Tayshawn Lyons was talking about what a great leader and a role model he's already been to him. You got an opportunity to be up at spring ball last week and get your first look at Dorian, and an opportunity to speak with him as he was available to the media too. What were your first impressions of Singer?
I think he definitely is a confident guy. He seems to have really bought in to the program, at least as much as he's given us that in as much of an indication as you can get of that on day one last week when I was up there. But in now 2 weeks in, he seems to really bought in. He talked about really liking the culture, and that's one of the reasons why he transferred here. So yeah, he definitely seems like he, at least culturally, seems to fit in really well with the team. And I think we're all expecting him to be a really good fit on the field as well. It's been a long time since Utah's had a true number one receiver. Probably Darren Carrington was the last one. And so it's a long time coming. And I think that he's poised to be that. And guys like Mycah Pittman, obviously having Brant Keithy back, should make for a really explosive or much more improved passing game anyway.
That's the hope. Absolutely. It was great last week to hear those reviews about like Cam and Brant hooking up on a few big plays. That's something that everyone is obviously ecstatic to see, not just because of all they've accomplished, but whenever you don't have something anymore, you forget how much you missed it. That was definitely the case with Cam Rising and Brant Keithy last year, especially their ability to make plays consistently together. Then I think that's really exciting that we have those guys back together. And speaking of making plays, let's shift to the defensive side of the ball. Another thing I thought it was really interesting that Fan Nation All Utes pointed out was talking about how Coach Winningham highlighted Alakai Gilman and I apologize for mispronouncing that last name, but showed a lot of promise today. And that Teo Johnson is really kind of starting to find his room and really showing great flashes and signs in the defensive backfield. The safety race is something I've been really excited about because I really liked what we saw from Nate Ritchie and Jonathan Hall in the bowl game. And I figured after that, I'm like, okay, those guys were probably the front runners to start, maybe just because they got the distinction there. But we always heard that Teo Johnson was going to get more time at safety. And I think he played a lot of safety too in the Pac-12, in the bowl game, because Utah had lost at that point. They had lost more corners in that one than they had. Because I may be getting my wires tripped. I think Broughton entered the transfer portal before the bowl game. So I think that's where Teo was more employed there as well. I know Miles Battle played, and we know Zemiah Vaughn played. So maybe I'm getting my wires crossed. But I just remember him at corner more than at safety in that game. I know it was Nate Ritchie and Jonathan Hall was the main guys.
He played mostly corner all last year.
He did play most of it all last year.
Yeah. But Witt has said multiple times last week. He talked about how natural Teo looks in the safety position. So Witt seems to be really excited about Teo's progress in playing safety and then the potential that he has at that position.
Yeah, with the tools and just athletic traits that he has, you can tell he's capable of doing some really exciting things. So I am very much so excited to see what is all going to entail for him at that safety spot, because as we said, he is a guy who has that just loads of potential overall. And another thing that I found just really interesting this week was hearing that Elijah Davis got to have a nice interception, as Joe Coles of the Deseret News notes on here. Davis is another guy, right? We're like, okay, who's going to be the surprise? That's what I'm always curious about. Keanu Tanavasa felt like he came out of nowhere last year, be the starting defensive tackle. Last year, Brandon Rose really broke out in spring ball. Injuries kind of prevented him from doing anything. 2 years ago, Devon Vele saw him really take over in spring ball, and then we know the season he would go on to have to. So you never know. There's a lot of guys in the defensive backfield, but I just talked about how I felt like Pittman got lost in the shuffle of the receivers. Who's to say Davis can't get lost in the shuffle of the defensive backfield and maybe carve out a role for himself?
Yeah, true. He definitely has a ton of potential. It really could be anybody at this point now. 2 weeks into spring ball, there's definitely plenty of time for guys to emerge. Those guys we talked about, Teo Johnson moving to the safety position, Davis in corner. There's certainly some guys that could probably make some noise this year at new positions.
Definitely feels like it's what we're trending for too. Also a fun thing to note that several reporters I've seen note that Mycah Bernard had a big run today, and that's another guy too where Florida, that first game we saw from Mycah was really exciting and fun. And we're like, okay, what's it going to look like for him and Jaquindon? We were all hyped to see that backfield tandem together. And, even Jaquindon dealt with all the injuries last year. It felt like he didn't get to truly be himself. And Mycah obviously didn't even get to play after the first game. So it was great to see him already back showing those explosive flashes during spring ball, because he's another guy that I'm excited to see this Utah backfield. Obviously, the star of week one was probably Mike Mitchell, but this is still Bernard's the veteran here, where I think he's going to have still a large role with this team.
Absolutely. And he talked about last week just how excited he is to get back on the football field and how much he kind of took football for granted before getting injured last year. And he said missing all of last year helped him kind of get the joy back for the game. And he's coming into this season just really excited to be back out on the field. And he says he has the joy for the game back, which I think bodes well for Utah's backfield and the production they can get. If guys are feeling good, obviously you would think that they would play better. So, that's what I'm expecting from Mycah Bernard, and it's exciting to have him back. That's a guy that no guarantee he would have come back for another season. So it's kind of a bonus to have him back, especially with, as you mentioned, Jaquindon leaving in the transfer portal. So it's nice to have Mycah back for sure.
To your point about him even coming back for this season, it wasn't too long ago. He was in the portal himself, and we thought he was moving on. And then he came back, and now we finally get to see hopefully a full season of him unleashed since announcing that return all the way back in the summer of 20, or back that was in the spring of 23. So it's crazy how time flies too. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do. So those are a lot of the standouts from the reports we've seen about day 2. Now I want to talk about some of the guys who are continuing to kind of grow and get better, and we're just excited to see more of a spring ball continues to wear on. We'll be diving into those guys in one moment. But first, want to talk to you guys about a sponsor of today's episode of Locked On Utes, our friends at Better Together. It's the first comprehensive daily fantasy application. Better Together offers a family experience for existing daily fantasy sport players with a social twist. You can play with a friend or a teammate. This provides a sense of camaraderie and just enhances the social experience of watching sports. Makes you realize that daily fantasy sports, they're fun alone, but like a lot of other things, it's better when you're doing it together with friends. There's just so much synergy that you have from working together, and you better your chances at winning than going it alone. The team experience is just something you cannot undersell. It creates a shared experience. Splitting a contest entry gives the feeling of being connected, even when you're apart, in a way to stay connected with friends when gone are the days of watching sports together or in person. It gives you that inexperienced players an immersive way to learn about daily fantasy sports too. If you want to get your friends into daily fantasy sports, teaming up with and following the lead of experienced friends and teammates in a team contest. Is your bracket already busted too? Then tired of the daily old fantasy sports grind where you make a roster move, cross your fingers, and hope for the best, or losing on the last peg of a parlay? Introducing Better Together, the first comprehensive daily fantasy sports platform where teamwork triumphs talent and you can play with your friends, not against them. You can pick more or less in real time, and you can get in on all the action today with our friends at Better Together. Also want to talk to you all about another sponsor of our episode of Locked On Utes, our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. James, as we're continuing to talk about all things spring ball, have to get to the backup quarterback battle, right? Because Cam has been entrenched for the last 3 spring balls. This has been the story, whether it was Bryson Barnes versus Jaquindon Jackson or Bryson Barnes versus Brandon Rose. And this year we have Brandon Rose versus Isaac Wilson, which is a fun new twist because you have a guy in Rose who we've been waiting for so long to see what his just place on the team is going to look like. And then Wilson obviously lit the state of Utah on fire the past few seasons. So it's been fun to watch these guys both get an opportunity and continue to try to make the most of it. It does appear, as Fan Nation tweeted out, the pecking order so far appears to be Cam 1, Rose 2, Wilson 3. But I feel like that's kind of to be expected early on. But as Wilson continues to get more and more experience, this is something I am curious to watch it play out over the course of fall camp too.
Yeah, absolutely. You would absolutely expect it to be in that order. Obviously, Cam 1 and the more experienced of the 2 backups in Rose ahead of Wilson. I think this is a huge off season for Brandon Rose, though, given that he was not ready to play he was physically ready, but he wasn't ready in the other ways to play in the bowl game. That gave me a ton of pause as to what his future will be with Utah. That wasn't a good sign for sure. So I think this is a huge offseason for him. He needs to show not only that he can be the immediate backup to Cam Rising, but that he can eventually play power level of football. It is a good sign that he is ahead of the true freshman and Wilson, but I think he still has a lot to prove in that regard. And I think the coaching staff is obviously hoping that he can prove to be that number 2 guy and a guy that they can rely on in case there's an injury to Cam Rising and he has to come in and do some spot starts. But I would also expect them in the next transfer portal window to continue to look for an experienced backup like they did in the previous one. But maybe in the spring. But this is Brandon's time in the spring before the window's open to show that, hey, you don't need an experienced backup quarterback. You got me. And so far, I think he is trending that way. But he definitely needs to continue to do that if he truly does have a future at not just at Utah, but at the power level, right?
No, absolutely. It's 1000% the case. And that's where this is an exciting opportunity for him to get the chance to battle it out against a guy who's drawn all the headlines in high school. And fans are no question more eager to see Wilson than a Rose. But we also know this coach is going to play the best man. He doesn't really care about who the hype is around. That's what it comes to Coach Witt. We know that's what he'll do. So going to be interesting to see who wins the battle out for that spot. Final thing I found really interesting as Fan Nation All Utes kind of notes was they tweeted out that Spencer Fano said the biggest improvement he feels like is his confidence. And to me, that makes a ton of sense. This is a freshman starting at the Power 5 last year, now the Power 4 level. That's a lot. You've grown up watching these guys and like going to practice against them. Like you're literally going against guys like you're in year 1. These guys are in year 4, 5, some of them even 6. I mean, it's insane the amount of experience they have on you and just a daunting thing going levels of crowd, all of those things day in and day out. You're being critiqued like every time you make a mistake rather than a high school stadium getting on you and a couple teammates. Like literally there's millions of watching on TV and a massive stadium too. Like just all those things matter. I feel like if you're an athlete. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And the biggest thing just proving like, hey, playing like college football at Utah, he just proved he could do it. He proved he could play college football at a pretty good level still. I've said a few times, right? Like I understand that so far they moved him from the left side to the right side. I thought he had some freshman moments for sure. But I will also say to defend him, he was a freshman. Like that's going to happen when you're starting at this level. So I think that makes a ton of sense. His confidence has been able to grow, and it absolutely should with a still pretty strong freshman year, all things considered.
Absolutely. I would say it was a really strong freshman year, being a guy who held down a starting job all year at a top program like Utah. I don't care how many moments he had where he didn't look completely right. The fact that no one else no more experienced guys beat you out for any of those games last year shows you that he can play at this level, right? And you would expect him to improve upon his play last year, and having that increased confidence coming into spring camp this year should be encouraging for Utes fans, as I know that one of the things that everybody's looking at is improved play in the offensive line this year. And if one of your better younger players, probably your best underclassmen, is saying that they're feeling a lot more confident coming into the season after they already had a really good freshman year by freshman standards, I think that should dispel any huge concerns that you have about the offensive line.
Definitely. I think it goes a long way to doing so. And it's going to be interesting to see how that unit continues to take shape, since at the moment you got a guy starting on the left side who is a true sophomore, only 1 year in, but we know what Lomu's capable of. So I'm excited for what him and Fano could potentially do if they stick in those two tackle spots, something to continue to monitor as spring ball wears on. And we're going to continue to talk about spring ball on Locked On Utes the rest of this week, but we got to talk about what the Utah baseball team just did. We'll be diving into that in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you all about another sponsor of our episode of Locked On Utes. It's Nissan. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out as they are the ones that pushed it further than the rest, just like the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take their game to the next level. Let's start with the Auburn Tigers, who can only be described as the Pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have really created a lane for themselves after claiming the top spot in the SEC as they knocked off the Florida Gators in the SEC Tournament Championship. They're set to make a run in the NCAA Tournament now, too. So make sure you guys take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure today. You can shop NissanUSA.com right now. Also want to talk to you all about another sponsor of our episode of Locked On Utes today, our great friends at UCCU. Here's some exciting news. UCCU has just elevated their checking accounts by enhancing them with more benefits, more savings, and more online protections than ever before. A lot more, paired with the most advanced and comprehensive mobile banking tools. Elevated Checking is a must-have financial product packed with lifestyle security and financial benefits. Lifestyle benefits alone include cell phone protection, roadside assistance, telehealth with 24/7 access to licensed health professionals with zero copay and exclusive savings on travel, shopping, and dining. And Elevated Checking is free when you do any one of the following. Use your debit or credit card 15 times or more a month, make a monthly deposit of $500 or more, or maintain an average daily balance of $1,500. Otherwise, UCCU Elevated Checking is only $6 a month. You can visit UCCU.com and open an Elevated Checking account online today. Stop by any branch to open an account. UCCU, love where you bank. James, there's a lot that's been going on at the University of Utah. Spring ball's back, football, of course, football. Both men's and women's basketball teams have been involved in some big games as of late too. And then also, if you're looking over to what the gymnastics team is, of course, continue to do the powerhouse program they are. We haven't been able to talk much baseball. And baseball definitely gave us a reason, no matter what was going on this week, to talk about after what they did against Oregon State. They fell behind early, 9-0 through 3.5 innings. And it looking like, all right, going to be another blowout and everything. It sucks, but it is what it is. But Utah somehow, even though they're playing the number 3 ranked team in the country, came back. They scored 4 runs in the bottom of the 6th, 2 in the bottom of the 5th, 1 in the bottom of the 6th, in the bottom of the 7th. Unreal. So they outscored the the Beavers 14-11 overall in this one. The 9-run comeback is the largest victory for the team since 2012, when they had their first season in the Pac-12 conference. It's incredible. And you got to give a ton of credit to whether it's Flaherty's 2 doubles in a career at 4 RBIs, Carpenter drove in 3 runs, Kai Roberts going 2 for 4 too. Like, just all around. I mean, sensational by this Utah team.
Yeah, it was an awesome game. You mentioned being down 9-0 early on. Like that's nuts. And by the way, they came back without hitting a homer. They scored 14 runs, no homers, which it's like, how do you even do that?
I know.
So it just goes to show they've got some hitters on this team. They don't just have guys who know how to hit it out of the park. They actually can hit it to all fields. That's what it goes to show. You have, like I said, no homers. Who was it that the 3 ribbies? Caden Carpenter, 2 hits, none of them for extra bases either. So, and 3 RBI anyway. Flaherty with 2 doubles and 4 RBI. I mean, just a really impressive performance. And like you said, it's even more impressive when they do it against Oregon State, who we all know is quite the powerhouse. They're not just number 3 in the country this year. This was a program that seemingly won the national title was a national title favorite every single year not that long ago. So, really impressive to do against the Beavers.
It's incredibly impressive, and I cannot wait to see what they continue to do out of the season after. Anytime you get a top 5 upset, I mean, come on, like that's in historic fashion like that. It makes it limitless potential. So we can't wait to see what they're going to do. Just like James, we can't wait to see what you do next. Can you tell us everything you got going on?
So I will be at Utes spring practice, covering it for ESPN 700. Occasionally I'll make it up there. So keep an eye on that, ESPN700sports.com for that. If I'm not there, we definitely have someone else up there covering it. And then every Saturday, 10 to noon, Sports Saturday on ESPN 700 and the ESPN 700 app.
Awesome, James. Thank you so much for joining us. Great stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you tomorrow talking more things Utah football and previewing Utah's upcoming pro day. We look forward to seeing you then.